Welcome to the Day 6 video, which covers Section 5.2, Solving Quadratic Equations by Graphing. As you can probably guess, today we are going to solve quadratic equations by graphing. There's a whole bunch of different methods that we're going to use to solve, but today we're going to learn the first one, which is graphing. You will definitely need a graphing calculator. We are not going to be graphing by hand. So before we get into the solving, I want to cover two pieces of vocabulary. One, just a reminder, what's a quadratic equation? This is what our whole chapter has been about so far. A quadratic equation is an equation where the highest degree is 2. So the highest power is x squared. Okay, so we're going to be solving these quadratic equations, which means we're going to be finding the roots. The roots are the points or x values where y is equal to 0. So you're going to have points that are some x value, comma, sorry, that should have been a comma, some x, comma, 0. So graphically what that looks like is if we have a quadratic like this, the points where y is 0 is going to be these 2 points right here. So we're going to be graphing to find those 2 points. So let's start by looking at example 1. It says solve x squared subtract 3x subtract 4 equals 0 by graphing. And then we have these calculator steps over to the right. So step number 1 is set your equation equal to 0. Okay, we're lucky, our equation is already equal to 0. And then put your equation into y equals in the calculator. Okay, so right now I need you to get out your graphing calculator, please. Okay, so go ahead and put your equation into y equals. So you should have y equals x squared, subtract 3x, subtract 4. If you ever get lost during the video, you will notice that these red buttons are the buttons that I'm pushing. So just follow the red buttons that I'm pushing, and you can always rewind at any time if you need to. Okay, step number 2, hit zoom 6, and that's just the standard window. And this is the graph that you should get. Now remember that we're looking for the roots, or the solutions, or the zeros. This graph happens to have 2. We're going to look for this point here and this point here. So we should have 2 roots or 2 solutions. Okay, so in order to find those solutions, hit second, calc, and you're going to go down to 0. Okay, now I'm going to tell you that on your note sheet, this says intersect, not 0. So make sure you cross it out and write 0, not intersect. So second, 0. And then hit enter. Okay, so it's going to ask you for the left bound first. So I'm going to start by finding this point right here. So the left bound is to the left where that point is. If I look to the left of that point, I go above the x-axis. So the left bound is above that point. So I'm going to move my cursor left until it's above the x-axis, and I'm going to hit enter. Then it asks for the right bound, which is below the x-axis. So go below and hit enter. And then do you want to guess? Yes, hit enter again. Okay, so this is our first 0, is -1, 0. Now I need to find that right 0. I need to find this one right here. So this time, when it asks for the left bound, which it should do, okay, so hit second, calc again. Again, you want to calculate the 0. Okay, it asks for the left bound. This time, the left of that 0 is below the x-axis. So my left bound is going to be below the x-axis. So move your cursor below and hit enter. Just has to be somewhere below. And then right bound is above and hit enter. Okay, the way that I know that the right bound is above is when I hit right, the cursor goes up, which means that the right bound is above the x-axis. Again, do you want to guess? Yes, you want to guess, so hit enter. Okay, so this is your next 0. Something that you're going to notice is that the y does not say 0. The y says -1e to the -12th. That's -1 times 10 to the -12th. That's just in scientific notation. So this number is just really, really small, really close to 0. The calculator just means 0. So that's going to be our second 0, is 4, 0. Okay, now just to check these so that you believe me, if if I substitute those x values in, I should get 0. So I have negative 1 squared, subtract 3, multiplied by negative 1, subtract 4. So this is 1, add 3, subtract 4, which gives me 0. And then if I substitute in 4, I should also get 0. So 4 squared, subtract 3, multiplied by 4, subtract 4. So this is 16, subtract 12, subtract 4, which equals 0. So these are my two solutions. You don't have to check them every time. I just wanted us to see that these x values are the x values where y is going to be 0. Okay, so I know that was a lot of calculator steps. We're going to do a few more examples. But before that, sorry, I don't know why all this isn't moving. Sorry, I don't know why those aren't moving with me. Okay, before that, I want to talk about the different types of solutions that we could have. So there's 3 different possibilities. One is the possibility that we just saw. We have a quadratic like this, and we're going to end up with 2 solutions. And that's because the quadratic passes through the x-axis twice. It's also possible to have one solution. Sorry, I'm going to try to draw this the best I can, and that's the case like this. One solution, and that's the solution where the vertex is on the x-axis. And then it's also possible to have no solutions. So that's a quadratic where the parabola does not cross through the x-axis. So something like this. This has 0 real solutions. And we're going to talk about what that means later, but not yet in this section. Okay, so let's go to example 2 then. So step 1 is make sure that your equation is set equal to 0. So first thing I want to do is I want to add x squared to both sides and subtract 14. Okay, so I have 0 equals x squared subtract 6x add 9. Remember that you cannot combine 6x and x squared because they are not like terms. Okay, now that my equation is set equal to 0, I can put it in y equals. So right now, put the equation in y equals, and then hit zoom 6, please. Okay, so my equation's in y equals. I'm going to hit zoom 6 and see the standard window right here. Okay, before I calculate that 0, it looks like I'm only going to have one 0. So keep that in mind. I might only have one solution, which it looks like to be the case. So let's see if I'm right. I'm going to hit second calc. I want to calculate a 0 and hit enter. Okay, going to the left of where that 0 is. So I'm to the left, I'm going to hit enter, and now go to the right of where that 0 is. And hit enter again, and then enter one more time. Okay, so my 0 is 3, 0. So I'm going to write that down. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit just to make sure that there really is one 0. There could be 2 zeros that are really close together, and I just want to make sure that that's not the case. So go to zoom in and hit enter one more time, and it should zoom you in. Okay, now this shows us that really it looks like there's only one solution. It looks like the vertex is right on the x-axis, which is good. So this is our only solution. Okay, so right now what I would like you to do is pause the video and try example 3 on your own, please. Come back when you have finished. Okay, you should have had enough time to try this one on your own. First thing that you should have done is set the equation equal to 0. So I'm going to add 2x squared and add 2x squared. So I have 2x squared, subtract 5x, subtract 12 equals 0. You might have moved to the 5x and the 12. That's okay. You would have ended up with negative 2x squared, add 5x, add 12 equals 0. Either equation is going to be correct. The only difference is this top equation is going to open up because of the 2x squared. The bottom one is going to open down because of the negative 2x squared. So they're going to look different, but we're going to get the same solution either way. Okay, so now, after I put my equation into y equals and hit zoom 6, this is what I'm looking at. It looks like I have 2 zeros. So I'm going to hit second calc and go down to 0. I'm going to start by finding that left 0. So as I go left, my cursor is going up. The left bound is above the x-axis. The right bound is below the x-axis. Hit enter, and hit enter one more time. Okay, this is my first 0. Negative 1.5, comma 0. Now I need to find that second 0 on the right. Okay, so I'm going to hit second calc again. I want to calculate the 0. As I go to the right, I can see my cursor, and then my cursor disappears. Okay, so where does the cursor go? Well, if you see at the bottom of the screen here, it tells you what your y value is. So if you watch, y is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and then it pops back up into our window, which is okay. In this case, the left bound is below the x-axis. That's because if I go to the point, this point, and I move left, it goes down. The graph goes down. So the left bound is below the axis. My right bound is above the x-axis then, because when I hit right, it goes up. Guess, yes. So this is my last 0. So my last 0 is 4, comma 0. So hopefully these were the 2 zeros that you got. If not, hopefully you now know what you did wrong. Right now, I'm going to leave you to do example 4 on your own. Pause the video and try this one on your own, please. When you're finished, come back and we will go over it together. Okay, first thing that you should have done is set this one equal to 0. So you get 9x squared, add 24x, subtract 16 equals 0. And then when I solved for the 0, I only found one 0. Negative 1.3 repeating, comma 0, or negative 4/3, comma 0. Either one of those is okay. So hopefully that's what you got. If not, please bring any questions that you have to class tomorrow. Now, if you would please flip the page. Okay, so we have 2 more examples and then we are finished. These are 2 word problems. It's okay, they're not that bad. So let's take a look. It says find 2 numbers whose sum is 12 and their product is negative 84. First thing that I want you to do is change this 84 to a 27. Okay, so sum is 12. That means adding. So I'm going to have x add y equals 12. And then the product is 27. Product means multiply. So I'm going to have x multiplied by y equals 27. Okay, now this is a system. We've solved these before. So I'm going to solve by substitution. Now I'm using my calculator. My calculator only allows y equals. So the first thing that I want to do is solve this top equation for y. I have y equals 12 subtract x. Sorry, that should be an x. And now I'm going to substitute this in for y in the second equation. So I have x multiplied by 12 subtract x equals 27. So I have 12x subtract x squared equals 27. And then moving the 27 over, I get 12x subtract x squared subtract 27 equals 0. Okay, now that my equation is set equal to 0, I can go to the calculator. So, right now, go to the calculator and put this into y equals, please. And then hit zoom 6. Okay, so after you did that, you should have done zoom 6, second calc, and calculated the 2 zeros. You get the 2 zeros to be 3, comma 0 and 9, comma 0. So the 2 numbers are 3 and 9. Okay, you have this last problem to do on your own, please. This is your entrance slip to class tomorrow. If you do not have it finished, you will not get credit. It's very similar to the first problem on this page. So do your best. Good luck.